Here we are again. What day is it? Saturday? I thunk it is. Saturday the what? Saturday the 12th. Holy shit. Lawnmowers are purring outside. I should have went fishing this morning. Damn it. I think it was my last chance today to go get a fishing rod tugged on by a steelhead, and I blew it. Oh well. I got lots to do. I think I'm leaving tomorrow. I'm pretty sure tomorrow's the day I'm leaving. Now, what do we got? Couple notes. First off, the regression hypnotherapy, which I believe, well, I haven't had it done yet, but everything's pointing to it being quite legitimate. A lot of people don't think it's legitimate, and some people do. And it's a pretty tough thing to make up and fake, isn't it? But you know what? I was thinking the other day, because I got flooded with a bunch of emails. I don't believe it. I don't care. Really, when individuals need to tell me what they believe or not, it goes in one ear and out the other for me. And I'm not being a dick. I'm just saying, you're on your own journey. In the end, every single... That's how Ruby Dog knocks at the door. Hold on a sec. What are you barking at? Coming in? Huh. Why don't you just try knocking? Eh? Guess she had her elk bone, didn't you? Was it good? Alright, you got to lie down. You know the program. Now, everybody's on their individual journey, right? It doesn't matter. I rarely share with people what I believe or not. Rarely, so I always say, take from what you will or leave it. Who gives a shit? Because in the end, doesn't really matter. Nobody really gives a flying shit what I believe or what you believe or not, right? What are you saying? You want to go outside? Hold on a minute. Anyway, all I'm saying is, in the end, it's your individual ride. It's your ride only, right? And whatever you believe is true has helped you through life, and you think it's a positive thing or good thing, and you pass it down and pass it on to other people who will take from it what they will or leave it. But anyway, getting to the regression hypnotherapy thing, one thing, if somebody really needed that truth, really needed to find out if it was legitimate or not, all you'd have to do is get, I don't know, how many people you feel, maybe 3 or 2 or 1, I don't know, because I've never challenged anyone that way myself, but you could get 3 legitimate individuals who've seen something, had that terrifying freaking experience, encounter somewhere with whatever it was they saw, and then get one person to make it up, and then all of them go to the same person for the hypnotherapy regression session, right? And see what the outcome is. There you go. It'd be pretty easy to do, wouldn't it? And I'm pretty certain that, anyway, I'll leave it at that. That's all the energy I got for that. All right? If you really need to find out, go out of your way to line that up and investigate. Now, what else do we got? I get forwarded a lot. A lot of people forward things to me in the inboxes. Holy shit, a lot. Kabillions of videos. You gotta watch this. And I've said it before in the past. I get thousands of emails if you gotta watch this video. Thousands, to the point of like, please stop. Please! Like I sent this video, I guess it's a Facebook video from somebody, last name Coleman, I think, posted up on Facebook on a dirt roads page, something about dirt roads. I guess a page for dirt road fanatics posted shit up. I don't know. But anyways, check it out here. It's just a average documented trackway with no description or anything of two different sets, all in line. Typical description, typical view, and noted how many times in our lifetime so far. But here it is anyway. There you go. Was it a life-changing video? Nope. Is it going to make a difference for many people out there who feel the need to try to convince other people in the community about this reality going on? Nope. Do you know what I mean? That's how I feel about it anyway. Cool to see, I guess. Interesting to see for most. We've seen it hundreds of times, if not possibly thousands of times. I'm over it. Over it. I want some solid answers about who the hell I am, where I came from, what my purpose is as a human being, and what I can do to help other people become aware of absolute truth during our existence and more. You know what I mean? That's why I'm sounding a little repetitive sometimes, but that's why I get absolutely frustrated with so many so-called big names who just keep going in circles and circles and circles and circles, talking about the same thing. Well, if it was real, if it was, and what could have done this, and what could have done that, and if it was real, do you know what I mean? And then maybe I think I need $250,000 of your money for a Kickstarter video so I can do it all over again and not make a fucking difference. Right? At the goals for many of us, which is, all right, enough of the shit. We know it's real. Get on with let's get on with the truth. Anyway, there you go. Yeah, I'm a little fired up this morning. I locked my horns a couple times this morning already. With various topics. Maybe I'm low at patience right now. I don't know. We all have the odd day like that. People get a hold of me because they're so offended. Holy shit. If you haven't figured it out yet, I don't give a shit about your feelings. I just don't. I don't. Grow a set. Get in the conversation and add to it or not. All right, that's enough. That's enough. Let's get on it. Let's hear some people. Shall we? Let's hear some people. As everybody's out mowing their lawns. Well, my one neighbor is anyway. How in the hell did he talk to me? How did I understand it? Is the title of this email. Hey Steve, I appreciate you having an ear, because what I have to tell you, I can't believe it myself. I'm ex-military. Thought I've seen the scariest anyone could see, and I was wrong. I sent you an encounter I had on a fishing trip to northern Wisconsin. My brother and me were tent camping. I was 41 at the time, and I'm 67 now. And the reason I'm writing back is I forgot to mention a few things. Even though it freaked me out and scared the crap out of me, it woke me up. And when I exited the tent, it was by the fire pit. And this creature, which also looked like a man that was extremely hairy, he stood 10 feet from me when he stood up. He was huge, 9 feet tall and about 5 feet wide. Totally freaked me out. The sheer size of him blew my mind. And I also had a gun, but dropped it when he turned and started to hum or growl at me. Kind of sounded like fingernails across a chalkboard. Ew, that just gave me a shiver. That gave me the heebie-jeebies. Still had the flashlight that was as bright as the sun, and only shined it at it with the overshine at it. He didn't move at me, and I was frozen. I couldn't move if I wanted to. It talked to me in my mind, and that was scary. And I understood what he said. What the F? How the hell? I was never telepathic before. What happened to me? Anyway, I must have motioned to it or pointed at the cooler. Anyway, he took some fish from the cooler and left. He looked back once and walked away. The female, she was maybe 7 feet tall, real hairy, kind of on the thin side with large-sized breasts and actually kind of pretty. That walked by from behind me really freaked me out because I didn't know she was there. And after they left, I found a wreath made from twigs on the cooler that I still have to this day. All in all, they didn't hurt me. I'm not saying they are all friendly, but I'm still alive. P.S. Unlike any other people, I tell everyone I know of my experience. I want them to understand what's out in the woods, just to be aware. And if they don't believe me, they will with their own experience someday. Sorry, I'm not much of a writer. Just the facts. My name is Chris Kersling. You can use my name if you want. Thanks again, Steve. Happy holidays and hunting too. Holy shit. That is one incredible thing to eyewitness, is it not? Very incredible. Wow. Appreciate that email, my man. I think that was a little while ago, too. I've gone through the inbox looking for unread emails the other morning and threw down a whole bunch. What do we got here? Have I read this? I don't know. It's got a photo. Let's go in. It's titled Tracking Bigfoot. This picture was taken above McKay, Idaho. However, it does not do what I saw and witnessed any justice. I grew up on a barley farm in eastern Idaho. Me and my 3 older brothers grew up listening to tales told by the older ranchers and hunters in our area. There is an absolute boatload of stories from people who have experienced encounters. Just the other day, while packing and shipping orders for snowmobile gear at Climb? My manager, who would never associate with such an experience, laughingly joked at an encounter. There was something in his voice that made me question him later. His story gave me goosebumps. What I'm getting at is exactly what you preach. Thousands of everyday people have had, do have, and will have said encounters. Now back to my story. In the fall of 2017, me and my cousin, who was an officer on a nuclear submarine, were deer hunting in pre-rut general season in the central mountains of Idaho. I'm a self-taught hunter who has shot bear, mountain lions, butchered moose, etc. For not having someone to teach me, I became a very proficient high country deer hunter. I'd taken time from climbing power poles at my job to make sure my out-of-state cousin could fill his deer tag. He had to move to the East Coast shortly, and this would be his last shebang for a few years with his demanding Navy career. We were in our 3rd day of hunting hard and decided to hike up to a high mountain I had never personally set foot on. The southwestern side of this mountain is an absolute labyrinth of mixed rocks, cliffs, caves, mountain mahogany, aspens, and a few pines. It is a place where I've always seen elk, especially good bulls. On a ridge line hiking in, I noticed wolf tracks, cougar, and even a big black bear had recently left the mountain on the game trail we were on. Reaching the dark timber on the north side of the mountain, we dropped back into the more exposed south side above the rock labyrinth. We had been glassing hard, encountered a lot of does, small bucks, and fawns. We decided to split up to increase our chances on the mountain, and right before we split though, we came across something unusual. There were 3 full-grown elk carcasses under a tree. Whoa. 3 were older from spring, I assume. That was weird. What was weird, though, is that the bones and carcasses were all pretty much intact. They had been picked dry. Almost like being butchered. Most of the time, kills are scattered from coyotes, wolves, birds, and prey, etc. We talked about the oddities of our discovery, but continued on. My cousin, going to an overlook while I continued up the ridge, my cousin was still in sight when I found the first track, and I couldn't believe it. I was astounded, shocked, and a little nervous. They were plain as day. Fresh, super fresh. I remember lightly calling at my cousin to come and inspect them. Looking back on it, I wish I would have physically went and got him to inspect them. However, with deer on my mind, being in shock and such discovery, I wasn't thinking clearest. I pulled out my cell phone to at least document the discovery. The sun was blaring off the screen on my smartphone badly, so I took only this one. Rushed. Cruddy picture. I was hurrying to continue tracking and possibly catch a glimpse, and I was jacked. I'd always been on the believing side, but here I had golden proof. A local professor from Idaho State University who was very smart about plaster casting such finds would have creamed in his pants. The tracks were so vivid, clear, and honestly unbelievable. Me, being who I am, was naturally curious, and I began following this trail. I would say the tracks were 16 to 17 inches long, and I wear 11 and a half, and they dwarfed me. The toes were pretty vivid and clear. I can't express how blown away I was with these tracks. I had to follow them. I tracked it for about 400 yards to the top of the ridge, and the maker of the tracks seemed to be in a rush by the way it left such a clear trail. Smashed sage, deeply defined in granular soil, very long stride. I couldn't help but notice what stood out most, other than the clarity, was how deep the prints impressed the ground. I'm 6'1" with long legs, and it was more than 2 of my strides to its 1. At the top of the ridge, they immediately dropped into the dark timber. I wanted to go in and keep following this creature. I couldn't help but feel like this was a horrible idea. While standing there looking down on the trail that led into the dark pines, I couldn't help but feel a close, like very close proximity to this creature. While contemplating my next move, I believed the creature was down, not far inside the timber, waiting and listening, just like I was doing, and it was eerily still. No birds, no wind, no brush moving. I noticed my adrenaline glands were on full tilt. My neck hair was standing on end, and the most overwhelming feeling that if I proceed, I would have an encounter I would definitely never forget or never tell because I would be killed. I think if my cousin would have been with me at I think if my cousin would have been with me, that we definitely would have entered the timber and quite possibly would never have left. We feed off each other, and our Viking heritage helps us make questionable decisions sometimes. Right on, brother. I can relate. I made the choice to back off and continue with my goal of finding deer. I could not quit thinking about what had just happened. I also noticed a pack of 6 coyotes acting very strange up on the very top of the mountain. They acted like they didn't want to leave their very top of the mountain. They didn't seem very afraid of me. I had my .300 Browning short mag, and I had felt like whatever it was that had the drop on me, I had felt like whatever it was had the drop on me in that timber. I felt vulnerable. Later on, upon telling my cousin and showing him the picture, he made fun of me. I wanted to punch him in the mouth. He and all people should know how serious I was. He knows how much I hunt, usually in the wilderness areas, how much time and effort I put into my hunting. And with the seasons, here, I can hunt muleys for 2 months straight. And I've yet to do it, but I'd like to. With the amount of time I pursue waterfowl and other hunting, there are few people I know that have hunted more than I have. Months later, me and my brother were volunteering with the Fish and Game radio collaring mule deer. My brother brought up the subject, and after showing them the picture, both got notably quiet. The situation felt weird, like they knew something and didn't want to talk about it. I appreciate all you do. You're a real true mountain man. Right on, man. Appreciate that. And here is the photo, you guys. Another one. Another photo. To add to the collection of what? Tens of thousands? Tens of thousands of footprints from something that's a made-up lie. Said all the dumb people on the planet. There you go. Welcome to the club. Absolutely appreciate you sharing that. What do we got here? We got another one. This is titled Sharing My Story. Steve, I grew up in the wilds of Idaho and Montana, hunting, fishing, and camping every year. I'm the eldest daughter and was taught early on how to take care of myself and others. How to shoot, set up and break down camp, cooking, and everything in between. As my grandfather on my dad's side was part Cherokee Indian, We also grew up with the tales of the wild men of the woods and skinwalkers, that we were in their territory when we were camping and hunting, and to be mindful and respect of our surroundings. Grandpa would tell us these stories, his eyes glinting in the firelight, and then smiling when we would say, "No way, you're just pulling our legs." And then he would say, "Just remember what I told you when you hear something strange in the wind, or when you're walking the trails and find something that seems odd." It wasn't until I was older, around 15 to 16 years of age in the early 80s, that I was allowed to stay back and camp alone to get lunch cooked for those who were out hunting or cutting wood. It was a little unnerving at first, hearing strange noises when you're alone, but after a while you get used to it, lol. One fall, I had everything ready for lunch. I was waiting for my family to come back to camp. We were situated on a slight rise north of the road, which curved around the campsite and headed back north again, with a marshy area that went up into the valley east of us, and we had seen sign of moose and deer around. I decided to take the binoculars with me to see if I could spot any animals out and about. I also took my sketching pad and pencils, wanting to draw the beauty of the mountains around me. Sitting on a huge rock about 50 yards from camp, down the hill near the road, I used the binoculars to check out the marsh and the tree line that ran from the road up into the valley on the southern edge. And I was rewarded by seeing a female moose and a set of twins walking through the marshy area. The twins were trying to be careful, as it was pretty difficult to get around in the weeds and tall grasses. I watched them for a while, laughing at their attempts to stay upright. But then a feeling came over me like someone was watching me. And so I looked back up, to our campsite. I didn't see or hear anyone up there, so I looked around the marsh and up and down the tree line on either side of the marsh and didn't really see anything in the binoculars until my third pass up the tree line. And as I scanned, a, quote, tree stump, end quote, stood up and started walking just inside the tree line down toward the road. I was paralyzed there for a moment, wondering what the heck was that, and then realizing, crap, I left the pistol on the picnic table. But everything went flying when he turned his head and looked right at me. He had been watching me watching the moose. And according to the height of the trees around him as he walked, he had to have been at least 8 to 9 feet tall, with long, shaggy, reddish-brown to dark brown mixed hair. His arms were long, his hands swinging down next to his calves, and would grasp limbs from the pines as he was walking. I was mesmerized, but soon jumped down from the rock, and picking up my art stuff and the binoculars, I ran up to the camper. I had come face to face with bobcat, mountain lion, black bear, and wolverine before, but I had never been as terrified as I was that day. Nobody had come back to camp yet for lunch, so I locked myself in the camper and kept thinking back on the stories Grandpa had told us, stories of how people had gone missing and were never found or heard from again. I made myself as small as I could on the back of the camper on the floor, using a blanket to cover me, and tried to calm my breathing. And pretty soon the noises of the birds and squirrels became silent, and I could hear something walking around inside our camp, huffing like a bear and grunting. I could see something large pass in front of the curtained window at the back of the camper, and then went around on the right side going towards the door. It stood there for a moment, and I held my breath, and then I couldn't hear it anymore. I'm not sure how long it was until I heard birdsong again, but it felt like forever. And not long after that, I could hear a vehicle coming, and then the sounds of my dad hollering the camp. I was never so glad to hear his voice. I jumped up, ran out the door, and tried to tell him what had happened, as everyone was climbing out of the trucks. And as I was telling him, my family started looking around at the ground, trying to find tracks of what I said had been in camp. But of course, none were found, including along the road and in the soft grass, so no one believed me. Grandpa sat down in his chair near the fire and encouraged me to tell him what I had experienced. And when I related to him what I had seen, he nodded and said that he believed me. Everyone else just laughed and said I had a vivid imagination. Until we had packed up camp later that afternoon and were going to head home. This sounds familiar, but who cares if I did or not? As the vehicle started to leave camp, everyone heard the sound of branches crashing and breaking and a yell or scream of something in the trees coming towards the camp. Everyone stopped and wondered what was going on until Grandpa yelled to get going again now. I was in the vehicle, pulling the camper, and my dad was back checking to make sure everything was ready to take off when the scream came. And then the most awful stench of rotting meat mixed with wet dog and crap came in the open windows of the truck. I've never seen my dad move so fast in my life. And after he jumped into the truck and took off, and we took off, I asked him if he believed me now. He just gave me a shaky little laugh as we headed down the mountain. I will never, ever forget that afternoon for as long as I live. I don't believe that anyone else saw it, but I know that they had to have heard it or smelled it. They still give me a hard time if it gets brought up, but I know what I saw, what I experienced, and no one can take that away from me. My name is Cherie, and you can tell my story. Cherie Ray. Cherie, welcome to the club, and I appreciate you big time. Thank you so much for sharing that experience. And it's okay they don't believe you. They're just scared, that's all. It's the only reason. The only reason people do not want to accept that from anyone is because it scares the living shit out of them. And that's the only reason. Prove me wrong. What do we got here? Is this recent? This is titled, it's titled Rad Now. Nana's Bigfoot Story. Might have read this. Hello, Steve. First, I'd like to thank you for giving everyone a platform to tell our stories and experiences. I have no problem with you giving my name. I'm old and have developed, and I don't give a shit what anybody thinks attitude. My story took place during the Christmas holidays, 79 or 80. I came face to face with the beast for the first time while living in the Shenandoah subdivision of Cedar Park, Texas. My sister and I had gotten off work around midnight. We worked retail with ridiculous long hours. We decided to meet up with friends at a local nightclub to unwind. I might have read this. Sounds familiar. I'm going to make the call. They went swimming, maybe. We decided to meet up with friends at a local nightclub to unwind, and no, we were not drunk, and we headed home around 2 a.m. And as we drove into our driveway, the car light beams shone into our neighbor's front yard, and that's when we both noticed movement and the reflection of eye shine. It was large, hunched over on all fours, and the eyes reflected an amber red color. Okay, I was wrong. It's not the same girls. We parked. The motion lights came on, and I walked over to the line of 2 to 3 foot tall shrubs that divided the properties. My first thought was that a cow had somehow gotten out of the ranch property directly behind our home. They did have cattle that at times would come up to the barbed wire fence, and I recall a strange smell in the air. It was a combination of wet dog, skunk, and manure. It was definitely silent and cold. I was asking my sister who should we call, but about the loose cow in our neighbor's yard as she walked over to stand by me. Remember, in those days there were no cell phones and most people didn't carry cameras around. And right at that moment, quote, the cow, end quote, stood up on 2 legs and ran towards us. My sister let out a blood-curdling scream, and the creature stopped around 10 feet in front of us. I can't recall if he was also screaming, because at one point I couldn't hear anything. It felt as if time stood still and everything moved in slow motion. He stood at least 8 to 9 feet tall, had long blackish brown hair that covered his entire body, very muscular arms, legs and chest, and a very human face. He looked Native American. We stared at each other for several minutes. Whoa, that's a long time. Minutes are a long time in the real world. Which in all honesty must have been only a few seconds. Then he turned, and in a blink of an eye, ran the half-acre property and leapt into what looked like a large black hole at the back fence line, like an Olympic hurdler. Let me read that one more time, smoother. He then turned, and in a blink of an eye, ran the half-acre property, and leapt into what looked like a large black hole at the back of the fence line like an Olympic hurdler. I was frozen on the spot until my sister grabbed my arm and pulled me out of the house. I couldn't speak, and my brain seemed so confused for several days afterwards as I attempted to process what we had seen. He came into my dreams several times. I would wake suddenly and see him looking through the sliding glass door of our bedroom. He never spoke to anyone. We never spoke to anyone except family about what we had seen. But even they ridiculed us. He continued to appear at other homes I've lived in throughout central Texas, and even to this day, I will catch a glimpse of him now and then just beyond the tree line, or peeking through the windows. About 2 months ago, I saw him sitting in a tree in my front yard, but he wasn't alone. A smaller one sat with him. Well, I'm older and maybe just a bit wiser, so I felt compelled to tell my story. My children and grandchildren don't believe me. Well, they think I have an overactive imagination. And thanks for lending an ear. And to those that join in and to listen to the experiences, all I have to say is they do exist. And like Steve says, what other proof do you need? There you go. Holy shit, I haven't read that one before. If you're still with us, if you feel like it one day, why don't you email us back and give us a description of that face and details since you've seen him the first time, and also who else is with him. What's up with that? You know, you guys, how many times people have been followed around miles away by the same beings after they acknowledge that they've seen each other? What the hell's up with that? When you are one of these people, one of these beings, what in the hell makes you feel what drives you, what has instructed you? I don't know what to say. What makes you have the drive to dedicate that much energy to just sitting there and observing the same human being, even hundreds of miles away from where you first saw them? Excuse me. You know what I mean? So much odd shit going on. Seems to be the theme of my freaking life. Trying to figure shit out on your own and learn everything on your own, and there's just hasn't been anyone there specific to absolutely grab us by the shoulders and say, look, this is what's going on, and this is exactly who they are, and what motivates them, and why they're doing what they're doing. You know what I mean? It's very difficult to figure out shit on your own. But if you don't quit, you figure it out. That I can share with confidence. It can be quite tough finding truth today, isn't it? Like, not just with this subject, with basically everything that's going on today. It's very time taxing when you're intent on finding truth. You know, like, that's why sometimes I'll share various podcasts or videos that I watch, and I'll post it up in the post section of this channel. And again, I don't necessarily agree with everything being said in the episode, but I may share people that I listen to, I may share with all of you, because I see there just might be something in there that I feel worthy of sharing with everybody else. So, that being said, what I'm getting at is it's time consuming. You know, for any specific subject you're interested in today, globally, locally, whatever, any topic you got, it can be when you have to rely on the testimony of others. What I'm saying, it can be quite time taxing. You know, to find truth today, it's kind of shitty. Actually, it's very shitty that we have to dig and dig and dig just to figure out any kind of truth today. It's a real shitty deal. Not fair. It's like back in the tribal days. Who was the first one to start frickin' lying? You know? Who was the first one? Because it sure spread like a cancer. You know, the mistrust, the zero trust factor in society has just gotten out of control. It's a cancer. People not trusting anybody anymore. It sucks ass. Who's next? Who is next? I'm going to title this as Red. All right, here we go. Solo mountain bike overnight encounter. I've made several overnight stays at nature preserves using a hammock, tarp, and a mountain bike. It's a great way to relax. I don't sleep much, being a 22-year veteran, but on these trips I sleep like a baby, sometimes more than 6 hours straight. I do zero-impact camping. No evidence, no fire. I had an encounter with something. I've always doubted it was a Bigfoot, but the more I listen to stories and the more I research, I just can't seem to explain it away. Or you try to explain away your drive to research the Sasquatch topic now. Right? And that's your gut telling you something pretty clear. It was late in the day on this trip, November time frame. I had my high output LEDs on the bike because it was getting dark. I found a nice pair of trees and a small clearing on top of a hill. I set up my hammock with the tarp in a raised position so I could see around. I didn't think it would rain, and there was no wind. It was a cloudy night, no moonlight. And with my headlamp off, I couldn't see my hand in front of my face. Had my DSLR camera and a tripod, tried some low-light shots. They were coming out just black, so I gave up on taking photos and stowed my camera gear. I don't go armed. It is a very liberal area, and all I have is a pair of hiking poles to defend myself. Been having a lot of coyote encounters, so this night I removed the headlight from my bike and hung it on my ridge line. 1,800 lumens, very bright. I figured would blind a coyote. Would not be much of a threat. And as usual, once it's dark, the woods come alive. Stuff moving everywhere. You hear the craziest sounds. And there's no doubt in my mind the animals in the woods communicate very well. They always seem to know I'm there. And some are curious and come close. And as they close in, they are usually making some kind of noise, which is repeated at a distance by a second animal. On this night, something heavy was moving toward me. It wasn't the typical rustle of leaves or shuffling. It was slow and methodical. Step, step, pause. Step, step, pause. And after a long pause, there was a sudden and incredibly loud thump. Like someone took a giant baseball bat and whacked it against the ground. Now I figured I must have some large buck trying to get a start out of me. I decided to let him get within about 15 feet and then hit him with the light so I can have a good look at what it is. Now the approach was 2 steps and a whack. Step, step, whack. Long pause. Step, step, whack. Man, this was crazy. This thing just kept getting closer. I turned on the light and 2 orange eyes sat high in the air. They dropped low to the ground and started to swing methodically back and forth. All I could see was the eyes. There was some very light brush in that direction, but I really don't understand why I did not get a reflection from the body. The eyes moved back and forth, kind of like a snake getting ready to strike. And I figured that was enough, and I turned off the light. This thing took off like some kind of a rocket. In 5 bounds, it must have been half a mile away. I heard several of the same interactions I had heard earlier that night. Some weird squawking-like sounds back and forth from different directions. Then all was quiet. I went to sleep. I always wrote this off as a deer. I can't find anybody out there that has had a similar encounter with a deer. With the massive amount of time you have in the wilderness, you must have had something similar happen, especially if it was just a deer. Let me know what you think. I still think it was a deer. No, excuse me, don't use my name if you do read this. Not supposed to be staying out in nature preserves past dark. What? Are you serious? Oh, do you mean, is that that's a rule? Is that a national parks or something rule? Ugh, no rules for me out in the real world. No way. What do I think? You know it wasn't a deer, especially if you wrote that in here and didn't want to leave your name. I guess that has nothing to do with leaving the name part, but you know it wasn't a deer. But there's the confusing part, which is an absolute chunk of pattern. Absolute confidence coming in tight during the night, sometimes during the day. Absolute confidence zeroing in on us, knowing exactly what we are and where we are. But then we put our eyes on them for the most part, and holy shit, I gotta get out of here now, and they run like you're about to blow their head off. It just doesn't add up. Well, it doesn't add up in my world currently anyway, because my world is basically all my interactions I have is, I guess I'm comparing to wildlife myself, right? Because that's all that I'm absolutely familiar. Absolutely familiar with the reactions, actions, and habits of all the wildlife where I live. I just am. I've been intently, but not intentionally, but I guess intentionally studying closely and observing the habits of all wildlife in British Columbia for the most part all of my life. I know what they do. I know why they do it. And I guess when I'm comparing my notes in my back of my bean with how these people are reacting, it just doesn't make sense to me. Doesn't make sense, but most of it doesn't anyway, right? But I'm still leaning towards the hypnotherapy regression session. I'm leaning towards that for a big chunk of the puzzle piece for myself. Leaning towards it. And it needs a little more attention from my brain. That angle to look at shit. So much. So much going on. Anyway. I got a lot going on in my brain right now, obviously. I got a lot going on. I got to get going. But it drives me nuts if I miss doing this. I don't know why. It just does. It just does. But anyway, I had a quick message. There's somebody emailed me a while back. I believe you live in between Tuscaloosa and my destination. And you explained to me where you lived and you would like me to stop by. And if you're still here listening to this, email me again. And if I leave Birmingham around the right time, I'll stop by. How's that sound? I'll stop by. And then, and for all you people out there that are worried words, don't do it. You don't know who it is. Oh, don't worry. I'll be giving my SEAL team leader and my other buddy the address before I go there. I'm pretty certain if I didn't show up, that place would be getting one hell of a nasty visit. Real quick, and very thorough. So there you go. Share my story at howtohunt.com, you guys. Get your truth to me. And if you are, I don't know, we'll see what my time is like, but if you are fairly near the Butler, Alabama zones, drop me an email. And we'll see if maybe you got something you want to share with me in the next couple of weeks. What else? The link to Sarah's goodies are down below. Fishing, the link to go fishing in the summer is down below. And I think that's about it. I got to get my ass moving. Sorry if I come across a little grumpy in the beginning of this, but shit happens, right? We're not perfect. We all have moments. Sometimes I just got no patience for... Sometimes I just have no patience for people being pussies and acting all emotional. Oh well. Talk to you guys later. Tomorrow. Maybe.